Are you a veteran? Are you friends or do you have a family member that's a vet? Well, they are being tricked into losing their Second Amendment rights, but there's an easy way to stop it, and we're going to be talking about it.
So, today we're going to be talking about something that's come up where veterans are actually being tricked into losing their Second Amendment rights. So, is this affecting all veterans? And how do we stop this? How do we stop veterans from being tricked into losing their Second Amendment rights?
But before we begin, show your support for the Second Amendment by hitting that like button. And for those of y'all in the greater Houston area, if you are in need of a defense attorney, whether that be criminal or civil, consider checking us out at walkertaylorlaw.com. We'll put our phone number up on the screen. Maybe you save it, maybe you don't need us today, but everybody hates lawyers until you need them.
Very
So
true.
check us out if you are in need of help. But today we're going to be talking about a couple of different things. This has been going on for a little while, but I just had this happen to a client, so it brought it back up into the forefront. But before we go into the kind of those questions that Leslie posed at the beginning of the video, welcome, Leslie. Great to see you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, on the heels of a glorious not guilty victory, right?
Very true. Yep.
But we have to talk about the legal mechanism that is causing veterans to lose Second Amendment rights in a way that you probably wouldn't expect. We're talking about is 18 USC 922 G4, and this is our prohibition on people who have been adjudicated as a mental defective or have been involuntarily committed to a mental institution. Now, the VA is twisting this in a way that I think is kind of pushing the boundaries of what the purpose of this law is, but that's the kind of legal mechanism that we're talking about. But let's talk about first, going on to that first question of how veterans, how are they being tricked?
So basically, what's happening is that if a veteran is coming in and they are being given a fiduciary to help them run their benefits, run their funds, that sort of thing, the VA is actually reporting that to NICS, the National Instant Criminal Background Check, and telling them that this person is a mental defective and cannot make their own decisions and therefore should not have the right to the Second Amendment. They shouldn't be able to own guns. So people are going into the VA thinking that they're getting help. Someone is saying, hey, do you think it'd be helpful to have someone kind of help run your funds? They're saying, yeah, sure, that'd be nice. And the VA is using that against them in order to take away their Second Amendment rights.
Yeah, so I was talking to a client the other day, and he's going in for treatment for PTSD. Unfortunately, that affects kind of a whole heck of a lot of our veterans. It manifests its way, itself in many, many different ways. And this is something everybody has to be aware of, because if you're not a veteran, I bet you know a veteran or you're related to a veteran. And so, how do we help safeguard their Second Amendment rights? But so we were talking about, hey, I'm going to go in. Should I not even seek treatment? And it's one of those deals where, no, obviously, if you're hurting, you need help, go seek treatment. But they are doing this little sneaky thing that Leslie just talked about, where they're saying, oh, let's get you not just an advocate, but a fiduciary to help you run everything. And then they're reporting it. So the question is this affecting all veterans? Well, it potentially could. And so you have to be very, very careful of what you're signing when you go to Veterans Administration seeking treatment. Think anxiety, think depression, think PTSD, think sleep problems. Those shouldn't cause you to lose your Second Amendment rights. But if you're signing up for a fiduciary, then it might be a little bit different.
Which is really sad, because this is something, I mean, as a society, the people who serve in the military, if they feel as though they need help, that's something we want them to get. We want people to get that help and to get better. So if you go into any other kind of doctor, you have patient-client confidentiality, right? You're confident, just like you can tell lawyers things, you can tell your doctor things, and you don't have to worry about that affecting you in the long run. But now they're actually using that against them. So people are going in thinking that they're going to be okay. They can talk to these people, they can get the help they need, and it's coming back to bite them, which is very, very sad.
And so the natural question, I think, is what do we do to stop this? Well, like I said, this has been going on for a little while, but it still hasn't gone away. And so I think it's worth discussing because it's kind of fallen out of the spotlight. But just some numbers. I mean, as far as mental defectives go, these veterans are the highest group of people who are being reported to the NICS system for being a mental defective. It's hundreds of thousands of veterans. It's a lot of people. And so obviously we want this to stop. We don't want people's Second Amendment rights infringed on. And so steps towards fixing that problem, well, first you got to know about a problem before you can fix it. That's what we're here, and this is why we would encourage you to share this video. But there's actually been a piece of legislation introduced with a whole heck of a lot of co-sponsors that would go to the very heart of this.
Yeah, and basically what that bill would do would prevent the VA from being able to report anything to NICS. So they wouldn't have the ability to make a decision and say that someone can't have their Second Amendment rights and report that to NICS. So that would be a very important piece of legislation to get passed. For those of you following along at home, if you want to look up these bills yourself, it is H.R. 705 and Senate Bill 1875, and that is the Veterans Second Amendment Protection Act. That's where you can find that piece of legislation.
Yeah, so it puts us a hold on the Veterans Administration, the secretary of that administration, reporting these things to the NICS. Ultimately, that would stop this problem at its core. For those folks who have already, unfortunately, found themselves in the trap of this database, I don't know that there's a lot of relief. Now, you'll hear this from Democrats. Oh, well, there's a way to get out of this. You just go get this cleared up with the FBI. Well, that mental health division with the FBI and the ATF and all this stuff, it is an unfunded mandate. And so your application to have your rights restored under these provisions just go into a pile and go nowhere. So that they're not being truthful when they tell you that stuff. And it raises another interesting issue. And this is a screwy thing when you have government agencies, whether this is your departments of public safeties or your justice departments. It just depends on where you live when it comes to gun rights and reporting, hey, potential mental health issues. Because most states have something on the book saying like, hey, look, if you've been, you got a probate court has said, we've appointed you a guardian. I get that. We got some due process there. Or if you have one of these, like, very extreme conditions like bipolar, we're not going to give you a gun license. But how do people kind of unwittingly walk into this stuff?
Yeah, I mean, I see it happen all the time where people call and they say, they're filling out their application for their Texas license to carry. So they report that they have been treated for PTSD or anxiety or depression. And unfortunately, the DPS will actually deny them their right to get a license to carry. And the only remedy that they have is they get a piece of paper saying that basically they have to find a doctor who's going to sign off saying that they will never have a psychotic episode and that for the entire life, they will be a sane person. Obviously, most doctors aren't willing to sign that piece of paper because—
You're kidding me.
Right. I know. Doctors they're doctors. They're not fortune tellers. So they don't have a crystal ball. They can't see the future and they don't want their name associated with that. So unfortunately, these people lose their right to have a license to carry in Texas because they reported that they have PTSD or anxiety or something that actually wouldn't prevent them from getting a license to carry.
Yeah. And that's unfortunate. And it's one of those things, if you have problems with those things, whether you should disclose something or not disclose something, obviously you want to speak to an attorney licensed in your state. But for these states that list out, all right, these 6 conditions, you're not going to be eligible for a concealed handgun license or a license to carry or whatever. When you report something that's not on the list, but, might have mental health implications, the government and the bureaucrats look at this like a dog watching television. They have no idea what to do with it.
Right. Exactly.
But what about HIPAA, you may say? Well, HIPAA, you have rights. Think of your rights as like a bundle of sticks. You can contract your rights away. And by signing up for, hey, I'm giving up my right to judge, jury, due process. I would like this fiduciary, this guardian. I waive all of my rights under what would otherwise be protected medical information. You can give away those types of rights and the government is not going to bat an eye at it.
And with regards to the license to carry in HIPAA, those sorts of forms are actually self-reporting. So there's no database unless you have been, like Richard said, if you have actually been declared a mental defective. So let's say that a judge has actually said, hey, you need a guardian. Or if you have been declared by a court incompetent, not competent to stand trial or something, that is in a database.
Yeah.
But what you have been diagnosed by a doctor with is not. So this is all self-reporting. It's just things that people are being honest about.
Yeah, it's like walking up to a cop and saying, I got a kilo of cocaine in the trunk.
Exactly.
Except it's, I guess that's not a good analogy. You have to say something legal. I got a pound of baking powder in the trunk.
Right.
What is a cop going to do with that? I have no idea.
So also to all the veterans out there, we really appreciate your service. Thank you so much for your service to our country, and we really appreciate you. And by no means are we saying that people should not seek help for something that they think they should get help for. That's obviously very important. And as a society, that's what we want. And our government should understand that people need help, and that doesn't necessarily mean that they shouldn't have the right to carry a firearm or shouldn't have the right to have a firearm, period.
But we hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, consider subscribing, hitting that like button, and help us fight the anti-2A algorithm by sharing this video. And don't forget to leave your questions and comments in the section down below. And until next time, we're the Armed Deterrents.
HR 705 and 7 bill.
Mhm.
Nope, not 7 bill, Senate
Mhm.
bill.